kindness, so shall I keep the testimonies of thy mouth forever, O Lord. Thy word is settled in heaven. Thy faithfulness is unto all generations. Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth.
Good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Just checking here, make sure everything's going okay. It's a little rough start on the stream. It didn't want to go. Okay. So we're continuing in Psalm 36, hopefully finishing this up this time. I did want to go back at verse 9 and look at one more thing. In thy light shall we see light. And I was talking about, prior to that, the fatness of thy house, the river of thy pleasures, thy loving kindness, righteousness, judgments. Trust in the shadow of wings. Well, whatever. All I remember is really what I wanted to say about this next part, because I just sat down, I looked at it, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that way of looking at it too. Which is, in thy light shall we see light. It has to do with somewhat, there's a way of looking at this in terms of subjectivity. Like, I'm going to see the light in the light of God. Because see the light is a metaphor for what? Maybe the metaphor isn't the right word. But we use this idiomatically in our language. Like, to see the light means to have a revelation, have a personal epiphany or something like that, where you come to a higher level of understanding or come to a eureka moment. I see the light. And, people the thing is about seeing the light, though, people have seen the light in all different kinds of light. You know what I mean? So, for example, like someone says, like, oh, hey, I got this here new cultic idea here. Let me share it with you and show you the evidence in the scriptures. And, don't you see? Do you see? Or outside of the Bible, people see the light in some philosophy. They see the light in some other religious experience. They see the light in some... they believe they've come to a state of enlightenment. But it's by a different light. It's not by the light of God. They've come to enlightenment. There's various forms of enlightenment. Sometimes for some people, there's a cynical immorality that is a form of enlightenment. Like for someone who doesn't believe in God, even like their atheism brings them to a point of enlightenment where it opens up their inner world, because now they can think whatever they want to think, do whatever they want to do without any fear of guilt, because there's I understand that for some people, the thought that your inner mind is completely private and yours only to consider is of major comfort, because we are corrupt creatures. We have corrupt thoughts. If you're honest with yourself, you know you have corrupt thoughts. And just for all different kinds of corruption. In the hearts of men are where all the things are: evil deeds, fornication, wickedness, murder. The origin of such things is in the heart. And we have different ideas of what enlightenment looks like. But I think one way to look at this is that we will be enlightened by the light of God. It's acknowledging that there are other ways in which men feel themselves enlightened. Because obviously it's talking about not just literal objective light. You know what I mean? Literal objective light in the world of the physical is objectively either light or darkness. But the light that goes on in men's heads when they think they know what's going on, when they think they know wisdom, that is not universally light. It's not universally darkness because, well, there is a sense in which, from the Lord's perspective, everything is either light or darkness. But from the perspective of the observer in the world, we see other kinds of light sometimes. So many people do. They see other light. They do not see the light in the light of God. So, verse 10, O continue thy loving kindness unto them that know thee, and thy righteousness to the upright in heart. The loving kindness of God is towards those that put their trust in him under the shadow of his wings. We talked about that extensively last time, right? Obviously, sometimes many things we talk about in the scriptures, I will say, this is given in terms of grace. Because, such as when I'll say, this is the upright in heart, or them that know you. It is given in a very generous way in the Old Testament very often. It isn't. Well, whenever they explore the subject of knowing God or being upright in terms of humanity, when they explore that subject in an absolute sense, meaning to know God the way we are known of God, men don't know God. We don't know God. But many of us have spent years studying him. And we know God on some level of understanding that God has given us to know him. So there is a knowledge of God which is, by comparison to the magnificence and greatness of God, is small. Because God is so huge. And there's so much to know and understand. And also his ways are past finding out in such things. There's a lot of scriptures that indicate this. And also it's the experience of every person in the world that God is like this secret that has to be found out in some way. And even when you start finding out about God, oftentimes one of the things you find out as you gain more and more knowledge is how little you know about God. But when it refers to, when the scripture is saying, hey, them that know you, it's being generous to those who try to know God. On some level do know God, and are known of him also as seekers of God. By seeking God, you become known to God as a seeker. Like, God, of course, knows us all. He's omniscient. He's all-knowing, right? He knows everything about us, right? But, I'm thinking about the scripture when it says, I was not known to them at that time by my name. They didn't know me by the name of Yahweh at one point. We didn't know God by the name of Jesus at some point. But then we came to know him by the name of Jesus. So we know him by a certain name. We know him by things that are revealed. Doesn't mean we completely know him, but we have, but like, God be gracious and willing, we hopefully would be able to resist an imposter. That we knew our God enough that we would recognize this isn't God. On some level, we have to have a knowledge. So, when it talks about those that know God, I think in terms of those that seek God, because that's a more accurate representation. But seeking you shall find, asking it shall be given you. Seek knowledge and you will gain knowledge. And so seekers of knowledge are the ones that possess knowledge. They're the ones that know God. And in a generous way, they could be said to know God. Like, it would be God in his grace and mercy would say to me, in his kindness and generosity for my ignorance and limitations, that Paul knows God. He could say that about me. But of course, humility would prevent me from actually really affirming that, at least in the most strictly, in the most strict sense of the phrase. It's like, because on a certain level, that's quite a thing to say, I know God. I know God. Do you know God? Sure. But it's I know God the way I know Tim. You know what I mean? Meaning there's certain levels of knowing that are so incidental that it's not. And I just picked the name Tim out of a hat. Actually, I do have a friend growing up named Tim, but I just mean like imagine you know someone, like someone says, "Do you know Bill?" It's like, "Yeah, I know Bill. We work together." It's like you barely know the guy, but he's not a stranger to you. You know what I mean? And and God can be like that too. God can be quite a friend, even though we are nearly strangers to him. You know? But those that seek God, definitely, it's like that. When we seek him, God is merciful, and I don't know. I want to say that he is willing and ready to receive our efforts to know him. Certainly sincere efforts. It's hard for me to believe that God would turn it away. But then again, you think about all the false religion out there, and then I think to myself, are all those people, are they all insincere in their belief? That's why they follow false religion? That's why they follow false teachings? Are they all, I do tend to think what's really going on? It's not an all question. Let's throw that out first. It's not all. People are very different, but there are a lot of people who are sincere but blind. They're blind in their quest for God, and that means, in some level, that the mercy of God can apply to them, of course, because blindness sort of prevents us from being responsible on some level, or it can. I don't know. There's different scriptures where Jesus said, if you were blind, you had no sin. But because you say you see, your sin remains. That's an interesting thing. There's some level on which we can be blinded, like the Pharisees of Jesus' day, and find ourselves getting into sort of hot water with God, as they did in the time of Jesus. They got themselves into trouble because they were blind. They couldn't see that Jesus was the Messiah. Though the scripture says that this was something God had ordained. This was God's doing, God's wisdom. And they, and their blindness is that. So, the blindness could arise for all kinds of reasons, in God's ultimate reasons, a lot of which I'm not privy to, of course. But, the thing is about human beings is like, no matter how sincere I am, I'm still corruptible. I may be sincere in one way, or I may sincerely want to be saved. I may sincerely want to believe in God. I may be sincere on many levels. But the thing is, for all that, without God's grace, without him having an attitude towards me first of salvation, God could look at all my efforts to positivity and still say, not good enough. Not good enough. Because my efforts, I've never put so much effort into knowing God that I think it could make up for any of my sins. In some way that it would offset that. So on the ultimate level of election and stuff, like, my sincerity of going after my religion is not necessarily something that obligates God. Because ultimately, when I started looking for God, I don't know if I was looking for the God I ended up finding. You know what I mean? I don't know. In some ways, I guess what I would say is a lot of people probably don't know. A lot of people may be looking for a different God than actually is there. I think one of the things that made a difference for me was the fact that I'm just very open to new ideas. Like, even if I had an idea about God, as I matured, instead of becoming hardened in my viewpoint of God, I became more open to other things, because the longer I became acquainted with my own ideas and the scripture, not my own ideas, but the ideas I was receiving as as my own, meaning I was accepting them into my heart as the truth, different ideas about God. And as I accepted these things, but having accepted them, I should say, they didn't necessarily harden into conviction, because on some level I knew I didn't really know what I was about, because God is a great unknown. He's not, something we can just put under a microscope and just know of him. But when we seek him, what I would say is, to throw away all like the theoretical stuff, and maybe I've been running around in circles with this, but, for comfort and for the best way to think of it is that if you seek God continually, that's a great sign that his loving kindness is towards you, even if you haven't had great results. But those who diligently seek him do find him. Because the fact that you diligently seek God is something that God puts in us and is part of what it means to be one of his elect, is that he puts it into our heart to seek him, maybe a bit more than other people. I don't know. I really can't comment on other people's sincerity. They seem sincere. And I do agree, and I do think that on some level someone could be sincerely deluded, yet at the same time still guilty. You know what I mean? Because very often the thing that I'm deluded in, even though I'm of maybe sincere motivation, I feel, but within my heart, I'm doing this because I think it's the truth. I'm motivated for truth's sake. But also, beneath that, it's not a quest for truth. It's a motivation for my conviction, which may be sincerely held, but is based maybe on what I want, on my desires, what I want to be true. There were things I wanted to be true because they seemed right, that I had to give up on because I was shown they were wrong. And it's an important ability if we really want to know God. That's the thing, is do I want to know God badly enough that I'm willing to swallow my pride, and have to take back things that I've said in the past? Have to face people and say, yeah, I used to think that, but now I think I was wrong. And have people dismiss you then as someone that shouldn't be listened to because you changed your mind. You're a reed shaken in the wind. You changed your mind. So how can we trust anything you say? I never asked you to trust anything I said like that. I never asked you to put that kind of trust in what I say. Maybe I did. If I did, I shouldn't have. At the time. So put that much trust. Meaning so much that you take it as conviction of dogma, like some particular viewpoint, that you would come to something that genuinely contradicts it, or a series of scriptures that really make it impossible, and not be able to change your mind, but rather have to change the scripture, because that's often what people do. I don't want to change my mind. I'll change the scripture, because my mind is set. The scripture, well, that can be interpreted. My mind has no place to go. Sometimes people's hearts are hardened like that. That's part of being what upright in heart is. It's like inside your heart, trying to do the right thing. Not trying to make the world around. Lies are an attempt to bend the world so that to warp it into my own corruptible view of things, of how they ought to be, or actually how I want other people to see it. I'm trying to bend the world so other people see the world in a certain way I'll use lies and cause people to see reality not the way it's really shaped. And that's what lies do. They create false senses of what's real. It's dangerous like that. I wish, hold on a second. Just mute that. That little sound is going to drive me nuts. I don't know if it's actually in the thing, but man, that's better. I can barely hear myself. Actually, I don't hear myself at all. Wow, hold on. Sorry. These headphones are actually broken. I have to plug in a second computer to make the whole thing work. All right. So, in my heart, I've got to desire the right thing for real, not just for show. not just me. I desire I want the outside world to conform to my corrupt heart. So I lie. Maybe I'll lie about God. Maybe I'll lie about, because I want the truth about God to be as if you send your money to me, you'll be blessed, and so will I. You know what I mean? Contribute now, and you too can be blessed, and so will I. Or whatever. Like the good old prosperity gospel. Continue thy righteousness to the upright in heart. God is upright towards the upright. Again, given in the most generous possible way. I'm not absolutely upright, but the implication is of one that seeks uprightness, the one that puts value on the right thing, the one whose heart changes to conform to the reality of God, to conform to the righteous dictates of God. Our hearts change. That's what it means to have an upright heart for a human. It'd be great if my heart was perfectly upright, beginning to end. And God could just look at me and say, there's one of upright heart. My righteousness is with him. My righteousness will continue with him. I think what it says about that is like that, his kindness towards them that know him, or that seek him, as I said, that's kind of implied. And thy righteousness, in this sense, it's not like imputed righteousness like we would think, but like the righteous way that God deals with us. He deals with us righteously. He gives for righteousness in return. And we're upright in heart, and he deals with us uprightly. But it implies it's sort of that those who are not upright, those who are crooked and corrupt, well, God deals with them in terms of corruption. You know what I mean? Because, what is that? Because the thing is that God creates good and evil. He creates growth and decay. You know what I mean? Decay is part of the order of the world that God creates. The corruptibles decay, and that which is corruptible dies. That which is corruptible is, constantly falling apart and not being renewed, and heading towards death. Whereas that which is righteous and which is good is headed towards life and being maintained and preserved. Like that's how it goes. Let not the foot of pride come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked remove me. There are the workers of iniquity fallen. They are cast down and shall not be able to rise. There are the workers of iniquity fallen. I'm just trying to think about, is there a place? I almost think it's like, it talks about your mercy is in the heavens. It's in a place. That faithfulness reaches to the clouds. It's in a place, there. Righteousness is like the great mountains. It's like a place. Judgment's a great deep. Again, a place. God preserves man and beast. These things are excellent. The children of men put their trust in the shadow of their wings. Another place, They shall be abundantly satisfied with the fatness of thy house. Another place. Thou shalt make them drink the river of thy pleasures. River is also a place. For with thee is the fountain of life. It's kind of a place. Like in thy light, another place, in his light. Yeah. So when it talks about there are the workers of iniquity fallen, means when they come before God, I think. Because we have all these metaphorical and simile type representations of symbolic things that represent God's attributes, but put into like geography and places and stuff like that, right? And ultimately, what does it say? We must stand before the judgment seat of Christ. We've got to face God. Confronting God is a place we all come to. And that is the place referred to. It's like, in the last verse here, that there is a place where the workers of iniquity fall. And it's all the same places where we rise. In the righteousness of God, in the kindness of God, in the, what was the other ones? Well, with him, the righteousness, the judgment. It was righteous judgment, loving kindness, and faithfulness, mercy. In the place where all those things are distributed, the same place where the mercy is given out is also the place where judgment is given out. Condemnation. By judgment, I mean condemnation. Because judgment is good or bad. Judgment is neutral. Judgment could be mercy. Well, mercy rejoices against judgment, but maybe, I forgot if that meant, that word there may have implied condemnation. Because there is a sense in which judgment, God, we want our judgment to be before God and God to judge us. But according to the faith of Christ, by the blood of Christ, we want to be judged. Not according to just our deeds. God forbid I want to be brought up on charges because of all my deeds. I'm in trouble then. But, and nothing to be done. There's really nothing I can do about it. Like if I look back on my life, I could spend the rest of my life, but it's like there's still be stuff to answer for. All the deeds done in my body that are part of who I was. You say not who I ended up on being. At the end I was an old man. But nobody judges. Some people don't get to be old men. And they do all their evil deeds while they're young, and then they're brought before the judgment, of men, and they're made to pay the price. At a young age. We get away with things in the sight of God that we ought to answer for. But because of Christ's blood, we don't answer for it because we have gained mercy through faith in his blood. And truly, faith in his blood follows on mercy because the mercy of God is sending that to us and giving us a heart to believe in it, to take the first step towards God. Like that, the calling of God comes first. God calls. That's God's mercy. That you can hear it. That's also his mercy. That you respond properly. That's God's mercy towards you. Let not the foot of pride come against me. The foot is put for the things, done by it. Usually, obviously, if someone's getting at you with their foot, it means like putting you under their foot or stomping you, kicking you with their foot, or in some way using the foot to oppress. So when it talks about the foot, it means oppression. I've been working on a song and a video for it. It's going to be spectacular. But one of the things is, one of the lines is, their boot on our neck. It's just convenient to their cause, and the cause being to get their boot on our neck, right? Someone's boot on your neck, or your face under their foot, is an obvious metaphor. Or simile, it's not a simile. It's an obvious sort of metaphor for, or actually, it's symbolic of all kinds of oppression, being under the boot, under their boots. It means the, also the foot, the actual kick. When someone kicks, things that are, proverbially kicked are dogs, dust. You know what I mean? What gets the kick? What gets the foot? Bugs get smushed with the foot. You know what I mean? Like, you got to think of it in terms of the symbolic meaning. And obviously, when you're being attacked by a foot, meaning someone's above you, usually. I mean, that's the implication. Like, on the ground, they're stomping you with their foot. They're kicking you with their foot. You're on the ground. It's the foot of pride because it's higher. It comes from above, or from a place they think is above, at least metaphorically. You know what I mean? They want to put their foot on you. They want to control you. They want to crush you. So there's the foot of pride coming down. And then the hand of the wicked remove me. There's also the hand. The hand is given for all kinds of deeds. But the foot implies particular things, Because it's hard to interact with someone's foot except you be in a humble position against them. When you're humiliated on the ground, that's when people's feet start coming against you. Though honestly, when I was thinking back when I was in 4th grade when I got attacked by a gang of older kids. I was a big kid for my age. There was only one of them that was bigger than me. And he was the one least involved of the 6 of them. Basically not involved, except to say he was hanging with them, and then he was telling them don't do it because they were trying to tie me up and throw me in a creek. But I remember I was laying there and I kicked at them with my feet from a low position. So sometimes the funny thing is the foot is available. The foot of the humble can also be a weapon, though it's never used so in symbology. But I was just thinking of obviously a lot of metaphors are meant just to be they're not absolute. You know what I mean? Like when we talk about the foot, it's like it's not absolute. I mean, you can kick up. You know what I mean? Though kicking up is a dangerous business when you're down. And there's more boots above you. I was kind of lucky to get away with that kick. I didn't exactly get away with it because they broke my nose as I was leaving. They hit me from behind, twisted my face up. Though I'm not positive, actually, if my twisted face doesn't come from actually... Like I have a flat spot on my head here, and my face is kind of... my nose is pushed that way. And they use forceps to pull me out of the womb, and I think that's actually probably why my skull is misshapen. I'm not sure if it's the broken nose. I mean, no one's face is totally symmetrical, but, it's like when you've got like a... Like I said, the dent here is not... it's unmistakable. It's unmistakable. And my siblings used to always joke about how, not all of them, but, joking about dropping on my head and stuff like that. What do they do? Scramble your brains? There are the workers of iniquity fallen. Let not the hand of the wicked remove me. From where? From the again. There's that place again. See, the there pops out in the verse 12, and it's like, well, what do you mean there? Because it doesn't quite represent where. Well, maybe also, I think immediately is actually in thy light. With thee is the fountain of life. With thee, the place is with God. In thy light. Let not the hand of the wicked remove me from the place I have with God. It's not a likely outcome, but, it's not like they wouldn't try. I've had the wicked try to remove me, try to convince me my faith was wrong, in vain. That there was no God to have faith in. Try to convince me of these things. I've had that happen. They tried to remove me from my place with God, from in his light, seeing the light from his perspective, from the perspective of I'm looking out from God at the light, where he shines it. They want to remove me from my place with God. With God, in the light of God, the workers of iniquity are fallen. When God's light goes forth and shines the light, justice comes. Condemnation comes to the wicked, to the workers of iniquity. That's what happens when God's light is shined on the wicked. When they come to God's light, they fall in the judgment. We can stand in the judgment or fall. That's a stand and fall are concepts that come up a lot also. When it says they fall, it means they've failed. They did not rise to the occasion. Obviously a simple metaphor. They are cast down. They should not be able to rise. And from the place of pride and exaltation, the workers of iniquity are brought down, cast down by the judgment of God, cast down by the light of God being shined into the darkness and revealing their evil deeds. In the place of God's judgment, the workers of iniquity fall. They will not rise. They're not able to rise because they have no ability. We have no power. I have no power to raise myself. It implies also there's an implication of death and resurrection. There's a second death. After the first death, when they go to the white throne judgment, they go and there's the second death, right? And they fall and do not rise. That is written also in the book of Isaiah, chapter 26. It says, they are Raphaim, they shall not rise. When it talks about awake and sing ye that dwell in the dust, along with my dead body shall there. It talks about the resurrection of the just in Isaiah 26, and I brought this up on a number of occasions, because it's one of the Old Testament passages that mentions resurrection. It says, I'm trying to remember the lead up words. That's why I went spacey on you there. I was like trying to remember, and it's like, just go. Well, because I have a song for it, and I should remember all the words. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust, for thy dew is as the dew of herbs. That's later. Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. It's near the end of the chapter. Together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell on the earth. And the earth shall cast out the Raphaim. But actually, earlier it says, they are dead, they shall not live. They are Raphaim, they shall not rise. Therefore, thou hast visited and destroyed them, and made all their memory to perish. Thy dead men shall live. That's what it says. It talks about the workers of iniquity. They will perish. But thy dead men, O Lord, shall live. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust. For thy dew is as the dew of herbs. Together with my dead bodies shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust. All right. You can go there and look that up. Well, this reminds me of that. They're cast down. They're not able to rise. They're fallen. And, they die. God, though we die, he redeems us from death. We fall, but we rise again. Because of the power of God, because of the power of the resurrection of Christ, we may fall, but we rise again because we dwell in the light of God. We are the seekers of the knowledge of God. And therefore, though we fall, we rise again. The wicked, it is not so. Because even in their resurrection, the resurrection is merely the resurrection of damnation. That's what Jesus calls it. Some to the resurrection of life, and others to the resurrection of damnation. They are raised to his resurrection in which they cannot stand, but they rather fall again. They cannot stand in that resurrection. They are raised for the purpose of judgment, but immediately they fall again because they cannot stand the judgment of God. They cannot withstand it. They cannot literally stand in it in the symbolic sense. All right, literally in the symbolic sense. Probably getting goofy. I thought we'd get on to the next chapter here. We got 20 more minutes, and I'm not going to try to stretch out the last one. So that's the end. That psalm just sort of ends like that. But, it took us a while to go through it because there's a lot of really powerful symbols of God's qualities, of his of his, attributes. His innate attributes, his loving kindness, his mercy. But those are applied as a person applies them. It's not just like God is mercy, and mercy is just for everybody because that's what God's all about. Some people would have it that way, and I empathize deeply with wanting that to be true. But I think that observing the testimony of God both in the scripture and in nature leads me to believe that it is not so. That mercy is just towards all, for all, in all times. That everyone just gets mercy. Because, there is the wicked. And we just said they will fall. They will not stand. They will not come before God and then get dusted off and, oh, come on, try again. That's how some people feel about the ultimate judgment of God. That, when, like, from the standpoint of universal reconciliation, which is, I've seen how I've talked to one person who was into it, and he went through his thinking, and I saw how you could take those scriptures and think about them so as to come to a conclusion like that. Even you could take a thing like this where it says they will fall and not be able to rise, but they're fallen. The sin and iniquity that binds them and is on them, and they fall in it, but God ultimately redeems them from it. In fact, the judgment is a process of redemption, and that's what the kind of direction they say. It's basically constantly circling around again to some scriptures in the New Testament, which are very universal in their application. At least they're easily applied universally. That doesn't necessarily mean that's how they ought to be applied, but it's the ease with which they may be interpreted that way that allows that interpretation. Because sometimes there's scriptures that we can interpret several ways, and if we favor them and don't take in the whole counsel of God and also the counsel of nature, if we don't take all that in, we can easily lead ourselves astray and not see the light in the light of God, but rather see the light in the light we want to see it in our own light, which is always hazardous. All right, Psalm 37. A psalm of David. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. For they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. All right, so let's just talk about the workers of iniquity first, and then we'll go on to the next verses. Fret not thyself because of evildoers. I want to know what fret means. Just because it's not a word I think I know what it means in English, but I'm just curious about what they do. Where the heck is my browsing internet? I'm blowing it here as an engineer. Whatever, there you go. Let the weirdness begin. 37. All right, fret. Yeah, because it's like fret. I think of fret as being like, oh, I'm fretting. Oh, I don't know. But according to this, the word fret means to burn. You know what I mean? To be angry or to burn, to be displeased with earnestly, fret, self, grieve. Well, a primitive root compared to char, to glow or grow warm. Figuratively, usually to blaze up. And anger, zeal, or jealousy. And it's translated in these ways. Be angry, burn, be displeased. It's even literally translated burn. More like his anger burned, Fret, self, grieve. Not very good translations into English, I would say. Fret, sounds more like enrage. Envious probably means envy. Like, let's look it up as long as we're doing this. I was about to just skip it, but let's look at envious. To be zealous or jealous, What if it has the idea of heat too? A lot of times jealousy does, because jealousy, we talk about the heat of jealousy, the heat of anger. Zeal implies heat. We talk about when someone is zealous for something, or someone has a lot of zeal, we use the metaphor of like cold and hot. Like when someone is cool, they're all cool, man. It's like, no, I'm imperturbable. I'm cool under fire, under pressure. Whereas hot is someone who is who is excitedly going about the activity. The implication sometimes. And so anyways, zealous in a bad sense, jealous or envious. Okay. So it's a word for jealousy in Hebrew. That's fine. Envy is fine. So, don't have envy of the workers of iniquity. Don't get angry. Don't get heated because of evildoers. And, it's funny because, I know someone I love, and every time I mention the word worry, oh, don't worry about it. They're like, I'm not worried, right? They don't worry. They don't want to be seen as worrying. Same thing with fret. It's kind of like, it's got an implication of unmanliness. Some people would say, I'm not fretting. You know what I mean? Because it sounds like something weak. I think of like someone sweating and their hands flying and like, oh, I'm fretting. You know what I mean? It implies weakness. Though, so does getting angry, honestly. It's just because it's heat, it feels good. It feels good to get angry sometimes. Sometimes it does, yes, sir. Sometimes it does feel good to get that anger out. You know what I mean? But you can make other people, the way you get, here's the thing. There are ways to express anger, be angry and sin not, that are less destructive than others. Sometimes it feels good to express anger, but also we can harm people around us. So be careful with that one. Now, as far as this, why one might fret because of evildoers? Well, because, they seem to get away with it. A lot of times, I don't know how many times I used to videotape televangelists and people like that looking for evidence. I mean, I don't know what I was doing. I had a videotape. It's not like today where I could edit it together. If I was young today, I'd be doing a lot of different things. It's interesting because, like, wow, if I had my youth back right now, not that I want it, I'd rather be who I am today right now, but I'm just saying, with the availability of video editing and capturing and just being able to just obtain video in a computerized file on my computer, as opposed to like having a VHS tape that I'd have to record to another VHS tape, which is, you know what I mean, like if I wanted to compile video to make a presentation, which was what I'd be looking at back then. Because computers, and certainly the thing is, even when I started with, in the 90s, right, we had computers, but most computers did not have a video capability. Play videos on a computer, that was like unheard of. At least, for consumer computers, it's like no. I mean, there were videos in computer games, but they were grainy and, they looked bad. It was full motion video, which was, why was it called full motion video? Well, because they didn't have like video on computers. They had, so they would put in this, they would look at it's full motion video. Look, we've compressed the video to the point where we can actually show a video on the computer screen, and it was new, but it was not in full bloom in the early 90s by any means. People who could have real, certainly not video of the quality of like television even. It was lower than that. And television is pretty bad if you know anything about the video quality compared to DVD was 640 by 480 or something like that. It was, which we thought of as being high definition, which by today's standards is not even HD, which starts at 720p, which is not DVD resolution. I remember looking at the DVD and seeing the chunky quality of it, but thinking this is great because it was still better than what we had. All right. What am I saying? Why am I saying all that stuff? I wonder why I brought that up. Oh, just to record. Oh, because you know why? I used to record the pastors, and I don't know what I was. I had this moment. I was trying to catch them in their words, because I'd bring them down, or I don't know. I didn't think so gloriously of it, but I was like, but maybe like show someone how bad it was, like show, oh, here's my buddy Rick. Hey, Rick, look at this. I was collecting evidence. I remember I videotaped this program where they had on John Ankerberg. And I'm sorry I'm using all Christians as my examples of the workers of iniquity. Okay. The John Ankerberg show, I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's that blonde-haired guy, who, or is that silver? Really, I'm never sure if he's blonde or silver, or he dyes it really, really light blonde. Or maybe that's just his color. But, he always has these little, like, he's a big, if you know the show, he's sort of exposés of, if you wanted an expose on Dungeons and Dragons, John Ankerberg was the guy to bring it. If you want an expose on the Masons, he'd have the guys on there talking about the Masons and their devilish ways and rock music, and he was very much that kind of exposing. I don't know if he still does his show in the 90s, I remember him. But he brought on all these scholars to defend the rapture at one point. And they had this music that was like, it felt at the time, and I was stoned watching it, granted, but the music was like, dun, 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 like we had this really dark orchestral music playing as he introduced all these scholars. Yeah, and then like, boom, 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 boom. It had like that kind of stuff, like in the orchestra, and Doctor da 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 boom, 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 boom. Sorry, that's hitting that's a little too loud. Boom, 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 boom. It was like this with trumpets, making that sort of alarm sound. Dun, 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 dun. Dr. So-and-so from the Christian University. Dun, 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 dun. Professor so-and-so of this institute. Dun, 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 dun. Defending the rapture. Dun, dun, dun. I remember I'm like, boy, they're doing a great job of making themselves look like Darth Vader. You know what I mean? To me, in my young, My young and zealous Christian mind, would watch it and record it. And I'd get upset. They're teaching this stuff on television. You know what I mean? It would inflame me. Even to this day, I get inflamed by the wicked. I do. Evildoers. Like them getting away with it. It drives me nuts. It does. I understand. But, we shouldn't allow it to... Well, here's the thing. Fret not thyself. Don't be envious. It doesn't mean you should do nothing. You know what I mean? And that, I think when I was young, I did fret a bit. I get worked up. But now I don't get worked up so much. So I confess, in the past 6 months, with the crisis that we're currently in, there are times when like them getting away with this deceit about everything has been frustrating and difficult. Where it made me feel like agitated, hot. Where I want they've reached into my life and threw me off of, they brought themselves into my crosshairs, basically, by doing certain things. You know what I mean? I was not really involved with politics. They drew me in, and I want them to pay for it. You know what I mean? I want there to be a price. And the songs I've written, the ones that are coming out, are calculated to make them pay the price. Believe me. Hopefully it will work. But even so, the thing is, the action's fine, but we don't want to let the emotion control us. It is good to fight the wicked, to resist evildoers. He said, resist not evil. No, Jesus, didn't he say at one point, resist not evil? They resist not evil, but whoever will smite you on the right cheek, turn to them the other also. Well, there's two ways you can resist evil. There's the one where you can just fight it and try to stop it head on. But that's not the way I propose to fight evil or evildoers. Like, for example, when they go after someone, because they've said something unpopular, they want to, cancel culture. They've expressed an unpopular opinion or made an unfortunate comment. A lot of times people say things they don't even mean, but they can be destroyed for misunderstanding. I always remember the story of the woman who was, she was going on a flight to Africa. And before she left, she's like, I'm on the way to Africa to go something. She was going to volunteer, something with AIDS and I forgot it, but she was there to do good. She was a liberal. And, and she's like, I hope I don't get AIDS or something, but it's okay because I'm white. That's what she said. And she actually meant it as there was a satirical nature to the comment that meant it was kind of it was a joke meant to say hey, society takes care of white people and we don't get AIDS because we have certain privileges, but these poor blacks in Africa, they do get AIDS because nobody cares about them, and that's terrible. That's what her comment actually meant. She meant it sarcastically, and she's not a person, like she says, in the left side of politics or whatever. She was not meant to be racist in the least. It was basically pointing out racism and trying to mock it, or not mock. Well, there's a certain amount of humor there. It was a good joke. For that, she got on the flight by the time she got off, the tweet had gone all over the place, and they'd called her employer, she got off the plane to discover her life was destroyed. And that's what, that's the kind of action, when we take action like that, like when we see someone do something we think is wrong, and we take that kind of destructive action against them, against their lives, to try to ruin them like that, that's evil. People who do that are doing evil. They're wicked people. Anyone who participates in cancel culture ought to be ashamed of themselves. And you are definitely a bad person. You're a bad person if you participate in cancel culture. That makes you a bad person. You are a bad, immoral human being. And they think you are the worst kind of hypocrite. And that's typical of bad religion, which is what cancel culture is. It's a bad religion. It's like a. It's unhealthy. Let's just put it that way. It's unhealthy. Anyways, so we can fret ourselves because of evildoers in such a way as to be wicked ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, we can be swallowed up of we hate wickedness so much that we become wicked. Just like the Pharisees in Jesus' day. I'm just putting on the enemy for a while so you can understand this. They look at Jesus and they freak out. This guy is calling himself the Messiah. Freak out. And it leads them to do all kinds of things that are ultimately backfire on them. You know what I mean? So if we go after the wicked the wrong way, we can have it backfire on us. You know what I mean? Try to go after them to do them harm. Okay? If you want to do something about the wicked, as the scriptures say, do good. Do good. So like the things I do things that are ultimately like songs I've written. Yes, they resist the wicked and the ones that are coming. People have only heard the two. It's like there is at least. I'm just thinking of it. Wait, what's the number 5 I'm thinking of? Sorry, let's take it. There are a minimum of 4 outstanding ones that have to come out. I mean, they're outstanding they're outstanding. I mean, they're like outstanding songs. So I think they are. 4 more that are coming, and most of them, well, at least 3 of them are calculated to bring about good, but they're also weapons meant to defeat the enemy. I mean, I bring them forth to defeat the enemy, but also ultimately to do good. First and foremost, the thought has to be for me that it will do some good, not just because I could write songs just to make people angry. You know what I mean? Just to use inflammatory language, to upset, just to get back at them, to make them angry the way they made me angry. A lot of times that's how people deal with things. Like online, I see people argue, and most of what they do is call each other names. They disrespect one another, call one another names. They're very rude to each other. Like, that's not any sort of response that's calculated to actually turn anyone to your side. I have a long experience this in the realm of religion. As far as turning people, a lot of times if you're dealing with a rude person, the best thing you can do is be kind. Because observers will see a rude person with one opinion and a nice person with the other. Who do you think they're more likely to listen to? The nice person. Especially, it depends. I mean, sometimes someone's prejudices, if someone's rude, they're just rooting for them. I mean, like, yeah, you tell them. You own those own them. People like when they destroy, metaphorically destroy them with your logic and facts. People like that. Everyone loves to, they love to see the wicked get there. They love to see them just eat it. I want to see them just destroyed with facts and logic. And then they get in that position where that they know they just got owned, but they're still trying to maintain the illusion because it's just a game. Well, the whole thing's being played like a game. I don't think that people necessarily think of it as a game, but they play it like one. They definitely play it like it's a game. They shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. We were talking about this about the previous study. The end is coming soon enough for everybody. It's like, so cutting them down, It's like everyone's in a rush to cut everything down. Everyone's in a rush to eliminate the enemy. You know what I mean? To smash them, to own them, to, you know what I mean? But it's like, to convert them is not often the thought. That's why some of the songs I wrote are calculated to convert certain people. They're the targets of certain of the songs I wrote are meant to target certain individuals, and they're meant to be conducive to changing minds. They're not necessarily going to change minds. It's probably going to mostly, if you're thinking in a certain way, it's going to land in your mind. It's going to reinforce your way of thinking. But the idea is, if there are people that are on the border between two big questions, you know what I mean? Like, you have a lot of questions that have absolute, like some people are, there's anti-abortion and pro-abortion, or pro-life, anti-life, whatever. It's fine to go pro and anti-abortion, whatever. I understand people like to choose their, their terms. There's pro-choice, pro-choice and pro-life. Everyone's pro, right? But those are basically two positions, for and against abortion, right? And they're at the extremes. Now, when you're arguing, you can just argue to own the person on the far extreme who totally is in favor of abortion, and you know what I mean? It's like, but you could also work to take people who are in the middle and maybe on the undecided and bring them a little closer to your side, at least over the middle, onto your side of the middle, so that they have a moderate position that agrees mostly with you. And then maybe, because if saving the lives of the unborn really matters to you, the first thing you should be concerned with is, like, if we just get the middle over to the right a bit, we could put some common sense restrictions on it without actually outlawing it, because people would lose their minds. But if we can start by just reducing the numbers, it used to be that people agreed, and I think that still many people do, that they want it to be safe, legal, and rare. That was what the liberals used to say. Now, on the left, they celebrate it, they videotape it, they think it's like something to be proud of. And, there are some people in the middle who do not think it's something to be proud of, but on the other hand, they do not fancy the idea of making it illegal and sending 15-year-old girls to jail for getting an abortion. And I understand why people would be reluctant to do that. So maybe the best way is to just start off addressing the causes. Maybe birth control. A lot of Christians don't like those words, but it's like, well, how badly do you hate abortion? Let me ask you this. Do you hate abortion more than you hate fornication? Because I do. Personally, I do. I'm not as inflamed about people fornicating, having sex out of wedlock, as I am about people getting abortions as a consequence of fornication. Because abortions aren't something that happens to couples in their 30s who've been married for 5 years and are trying to have a baby. And if it does, it's a tragedy, and I don't even want to get involved. Because it's probably like something like, it was born with whatever. It's like, I don't really think that, I do think the handicapped deserve to live. Some people think, I don't want to raise a baby who has no arms and legs, so they kill it. I think that's wrong. Right? I think that's wrong. But if I can start by saving the lives of healthy babies, why wouldn't we take that? Why wouldn't we save first what we can? I believe in pragmatic approach. It's like I agree that the right way, we have to understand the right way is, don't kill your babies, right? And don't fornicate. That's, start there. But, the cause of children is understood. We understand what causes children. And there are ways to prevent that for people who don't want them. I don't want to force people to carry children. But I don't think that the solution to not wanting to carry a child is to kill one after you started carrying it. That's highly irresponsible, and it's evil. It's evil in the world. A lot of people don't understand the evil that's being done, and like I said, it's like, you fancy throwing 16-year-olds in jail? I don't. But because there's other societal problems that are at the root of it that really ought to be addressed first. Once the cat's out of the bag. Because I think women get these things done. And the more loose of a society you have, the more immoral and stuff, the more it's going to happen. Verse 3. How much time we got left? Oh, we're over. Okay. Well, we're going to start off with verse 3 tomorrow. And we'll look forward to continuing the study in Psalm 37, the Psalms. And I look forward to seeing you then.